speaking of crazy Republicans saying crazy things, we got our buddy, old pal, Madison Cawthorn. What's he up to? Are you still moving cats? All right, still moving cats. Express.co.uk, the headline here. Wild Republican sparks GOP outrage after claiming he was invited to Washington orgy. Oh, boy. Trying to stay family friendly, but the headline of the article here is not really helping. Mr. Cawthorn, who was selected in 2020 as the youngest person ever to serve in Congress. By the way, Mr. Cawthorn is the gentleman in the wheelchair that we didn't know who he was a few episodes ago, but since we figured out who he was, he's really, hitting the news circuit. The youngest person ever to serve in Congress, age just 26, made the comments during an appearance on the Warrior Poet podcast hosted by John Lovell. Ooh, John Lovell. The North Carolina representative who goes up for re-election in November appeared on the podcast in his wheelchair wearing a camouflage baseball cap and a t-shirt which exposed his tattoos. He's a hip conservative. When asked by Mr. Lovell about whether the corruption in the Netflix series House of Cards was also visible in Washington, Mr. Cawthorn said, quote, "The sexual perversion that goes on in Washington. I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, where the average is probably 60 or 70, I'm looking at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics. Then all of a sudden you get invited. We're going to have a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come." What did you just ask me to come to? And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Or the fact that some of the people, this is still the quote, or the fact that some of the people who are leading on the movement to try and remove addiction in our country, and then you watch them do a key bump of cocaine right in front of you, and it's like, this is wild.
Wild, man.
This is wild. Cawthorn's appearance on the Warrior Poets podcast, which has over 1.2 million subscribers, has been viewed over 165,000 times on YouTube. Okay. The GOP congressman's comments have also sparked outrage within Republican Party ranks. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy promised to speak to Mr. Cawthorn about the allegations made. Why? Why, Kevin McCarthy? Are you involved? The Californian congressman's office has confirmed. Meghan McCain has also been quick to question Mr. Cawthorn's accounts. Writing for DailyMail.com, DailyMail.com, the daughter of the late Arizona senator and one-time GOP contender for the White House, John McCain, said, quote, "Congressman Madison Cawthorn represents a fringe group within the Republican Party, just as the progressive extremists of the squad represent a far-left slice of the Democratic Party." Interesting.
Mm-hmm, sure. I love the logical exclusivity that's being ignored by, who is this? Was this McCain?
That was McCain, yeah.
Yeah, because we hear that Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is Trumpian now. The GOP are all conspiracy theorists, et cetera, et cetera. But then when it's time to, slam this young man for giving away the debaucherous secrets of DC, then it's like, oh no, he's just an outlier. He's a lone wolf. It's such a small sliver of the Republican Party who's, crazy conspiracy theorists. It's like, okay, great. Well, which is it? Are they all crazy, or is it just a couple of them? Because hearing it both ways.
Yeah, they make it political at the end here with the
So
McCain quote.
I loved this. I've loved every moment since after the State of the Union speech, because it was during the State of the Union that you and I saw this person for the very first time and were baffled by his existence and who he was. And then, I mean, it's like I never even...
Tom Brady clone on a wheelchair. Actually, we didn't know he was on a wheelchair.
We didn't even know he was on a wheelchair. It's just some, young guy is sitting on the floor of Congress. And then the next week, it was like, oh, look, that guy we never knew about. Chris Shilzilla actually taught us about him. Another reason why we're pretty sure, if not Chris, then one of his assistants or something is keeping tabs on the show. Because it was literally like the next episode, Chris had come out, written.
We're like, who is that guy? And then Chris was like, I'll tell you through my CNN platform.
And the article is literally titled something like, "Don't know who Madison Cawthorn is? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
He's lost his license or whatever." And then now this, not only is this just a big story, but it's like, I don't think people are understanding how big a story this is.
Yeah.
You have a 26-year-old freshman congressman who's sort of a populist. He's not like Trumpian, but he has the political qualities of Trump, being that he's like an outsider and he's a populist and speaks honestly, and even when he makes a mess, these types of things. But if I was Madison Cawthorn right now, I would be a little bit afraid because he's young. Young guys are gonna say stuff, especially when they're on the podcast, especially when they're on a popular podcast. When they're a guest and they're trying to make a good impression and be cool, you're gonna say things that you probably shouldn't say. And I'm worried for him about how exactly he's going to learn this lesson. Best case scenario, they somehow find somebody else who's going to win against him in the next election. Worst case scenario could get as worse as it possibly can if he either continues to do this or does not properly atone for giving away the debaucherous, drug-fueled aspects of Washington, D.C., because he's putting other people's livelihoods at risk, and powerful people don't appreciate that very much.
Yeah, if he's not careful, he's going to become part of the experiment of the technocracy, the technocratic elite. They're like, hey, you're going to be the first guy to walk from our injection.
We're going to give you your cyborg legs. Yeah. So, but on the other hand, I mean, you got to admit it. He's just saying what we all already know. Yeah. And even if you don't know it, like know it, like we do and many others do, you're not surprised by it.
Yeah.
And it's this, what he's doing, his real sin here is not telling the truth. It's turning the lights on in the theater.
Yeah.
Because we have this agreement. There's some sort of agreement going on in the U.S. when it comes to politics, and you see it from the very founding of the country and just the system, where it is sacred. The system is sacred. Yeah. The way we've constructed it is sort of this holy thing, according to them, and maybe holy in the ways of like occultism and esotericism and mystery schools and things, but it is supposed to be sacred. And along with that sacredness is the theater to just agree that it is and pretend that it is, even though it's not. And really, his big sin here is not saying things that we all already know or maybe didn't know. It's daring to reveal that the purity is goes deeper than just political reasons.
Right.
So, and I, in one way or another, I kind of think that that's part of what happened to Kevin Spacey. With the House of Cards show, which is the context in which Madison made these comments, was I think he was asked, like, so is it really like House of Cards?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, it is. It's exactly like House of Cards. And I think that's what happened to Kevin Spacey. He made House of Cards, which was lifting the veil. It was revealing the nature, the thing that we've all agreed to ignore. Not us, of course, but so I don't think it's
in the system.
Yeah, right. Or people just not paying attention. Just people, So I think that's part of why Kevin Spacey had his fall from grace, and I do fear for Madison here. What's his name? Madison?
Cawthorn. Madison Cawthorn.
Madison. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.